All right, so I'm going to unwrap my vase. It was set out for an hour and just out in the open air. And then actually it's set in my plastic for an entire weekend. And so I'm just getting a look at it right now. It looks pretty good. So it's now the form is pretty good. I might want to do a little more blending down in here, but in this video, I'm going to show you how to finish it off. So you're going to need a ruler, a fettling knife, and your carving tool that we made. Okay, so the first thing I want to do with my vase is figure out the top part here. It's a little wonky, it's kind of split right there. It doesn't look very good. So before I carve it, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to measure the lowest part. I think I want it to be about 1.5 inches. So I'm going to see if I can do this on here. So I'm going to zoom in. There you go. And so I'm going to take from the base here and mark 1.5 inches. You know, I think I'm going to do 1.25. That looks better to me. And so I'm going to make a mark, and then I'm going to turn it. I'm going to make another mark, keeping that same measurement all the way around. Okay, so I got my marks, and I'm going to just cut. And I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to be very careful not to put any pressure on the neck. So again, I'm going to hold it, and I'm just going to connect the dots that I made as gently as I can. Okay, so that just gives my top of my pot a little different look. And the next thing I'm going to do is with the knife is I want to kind of carve down, so take off this corner here. I'm just going to kind of knock off that corner at about a 45-degree angle. And I can also go in a little bit and knock off that angle if I want to. I can just kind of carve down in here until I get the thickness that I want, so it just kind of looks like it's coming out nicely. Okay, and then I want to round everything with my finger, and I'm putting my hands right up here so that I don't weaken it. Okay, so supporting it from the outside, rounding this top lip here. We want no sharp corners, all rounded. Don't use any slip. It should still be wet enough for you to use just your fingers. Show you what it looks like. So since I cut off the top, it has a better proportion of top to bottom. It just looks better to me. I'm going to go around and make it all really, really beautiful. So this is kind of my final finishing before I do my carving. So I am blending out any marks that I don't want, and you don't want any marks. So I will do that here. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with my vase, and now it's time to start the carving. It's leather hard, but I can still move the clay with my finger and carve into it with our carving tool. So this was the carving tool we made, right? So my expectation is that you make a line pattern carving. All right, and I have an example of a line pattern carving. Here's one with very short lines. Okay, you can see the top is carved with just short little dashes, and the sides kind of almost like a starburst from the center out, so that would be one way to do it. You can do any line pattern that you want. I'm going to do a little bit different line pattern, and I'm going to actually lay mine out. So I know that I want to have it kind of even and equal, so I'm going to do some measuring and that kind of thing, but you really don't have to. You might look on the internet or talk to me about different line patterns, but it's just a repetitive line. It could be a curved line, a zigzag line, a diagonal line. And when you're carving, you're trying not to go all the way through. Big, big deal. You do not want to poke a hole. So you're not scooping like scooping ice cream. Okay, it's more like you are skimming the surface, like you're skating across the surface. So again, you're not scooping down, but you're just skating across the top and just removing that top layer. Okay, so I'm going to do that here. I'm going to measure a little bit, like I said. You don't have to measure. I just want mine to be a little bit more geometric. Okay, so I'm done with my carving. I went really fast and I obviously sped up the video, but there are parts that I really love and there are parts that I don't really like that much, but overall the pattern is really great. Okay, and I'm really happy about that. I'm just kind of gently wiping off any of the crusty bits that I do see. I'm going to let this dry out a little more and then use the dry paintbrush technique. For our craftsmanship, we really don't want any of these little tiny crusty bits, right? Um, all this stuff up in here. We want it to all be smooth, okay? And like you don't want all these little bits that have fallen off. You don't want to set your vase down on them. They'll stick. So you probably saw me wiping them away every now and then and kind of cleaning off my tools so it was a little bit clean. Don't labor over it though. Like don't like if there's an imperfection, which there is right here, I can go ahead and try to make it a little bit better, but don't like it's just going to look like it's overworked if you go in too much. So you can do little areas like here it's not as, the end is rounded here, but it's not as rounded here. So I might want to come in and work on that a little bit. But overall, it should look like a hand carved work, not something that a machine did. And so I'm going to let this dry for another hour or so, and then come back and see how it is. Okay, so it's been sitting out for over an hour, probably 2 class periods, and it's a lot stiffer. And I'm just going to take a very clean and a very dry brush. So don't clean the brush and then do it right when it's wet. You have to make sure it's dry. And I'm going to get all the little crusty bits off, okay? And just brushing it off, almost like I'm sweeping the little crusty bits away. So we don't want these to stay on the vessel once it's fired because they will be really sharp. So I'm just sweeping that away. And then the last step is rounding any sharp edges. So especially around here. Okay, so I have my slip. I can use my slip if it's really watery. If it's not really watery, add some water to your slip. Kind of stir it up here. But what you want is just a little bit of water on your finger, not a lot. And you want to make sure this is all nice and rounded. Okay, so that if I put a stem for a flower in here, it doesn't get cut. If I rub my fingers around here, it is completely rounded. Okay, same with any little areas that you've cut. You can rub uh, a barely wet finger, just barely wet, not even really dripping. I'm kind of wiping it off and just rounding those corners just the tiniest bit. Okay, so and then you're going to let it dry out. You do need to put your initials on the bottom and your period. I brush for that. And you're going to let it dry. And then once it's fully dry, you're going to put it in the kiln. And then we'll talk about glazing in class together. Okay, so thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.